Hello everyone, I continue to bring you the story of Something in My Room, a BL drama with a fantasy theme. As mentioned in the last episode, Pello takes Hillary to an art competition, and a mysterious man's sudden appearance leads them to an unexpected clue to Hillary's birth. When she gets home, Pello immediately starts Googling and finds out that the mystery man's name is Max. He intends to honor Hillary's memory through a stage production. Following this trail of Max, Pello also found intimate photos of him and Hillary in the past. At night, Hillary is at Pello's bedside, silently watching Pello toss and turn. Pello said he was a little nervous about entering his first art competition and couldn't sleep at all. Hillary saw this and hurriedly motioned for Pello to come closer, then slowly pressed their foreheads together. Under Hillary's magical hypnosis, Pello drifted off to dreamland. In the dream, Hillary constructs a role-playing dream for Pello to practice, playing the role of the owner of the company herself and leaving Pello to play the role of the model. Meanwhile, Hillary takes advantage of her status in the play to tease Pello like crazy. Suddenly, a paper airplane flew in and interrupted the duo's practice. Hillary sees the paper airplanes and instantly becomes stricken with a headache, and the constructed dream vanishes. Pello finds Hillary in a darkened dreamscape, and just as he's about to comfort the unconscious Hillary, Max's hideous face appears in the dream. He questioned Hillary aloud, and we agreed to let him play the model. As Max yells, Hillary crashes right back down, and the two are ejected from the dream world and back to reality. Hillary is obsessively folding paper airplanes while Pello can't sleep. After a hard night's sleeplessness, Hillary finds the landlord early in the morning and questions her past. Hillary is disappointed when the landlord says the time is not right and refuses to reveal more of his past. Inside the house, Pello also notices Hillary's regret, and when Hillary returns to the house, Pello rushes to question him about his relationship with Max, but Hillary immediately switched to a smiley face and tried to muddle through. Pello was trying to talk to Hillary in a nice way, but Hillary kept on equivocating, which directly made Pello's eyes red with anger. In a fit of rage, he left in anger. When a young couple fights, it's natural to go to their friends to complain. As a result, Pello approached Malice and complained directly about Hillary's concealment and deception of herself. He looked indignant for a long time, only to be interrupted by Malice saying, "Are you jealous?" I have to say, Malice really saw right through things. Pello was obviously very concerned about Hillary and Max's past, and Malice has to patiently help analyze it for Pello as a good friend, as she watches Pello squirm like he likes it but doesn't know it. With Malice's persuasion, Pello gradually becomes happier and begins to speak unconsciously of Hillary's virtues. Malice, of course, can't stand it and immediately takes action to stop Pello's shameless behavior. The two of them were laughing and joking straight away. When Pello has calmed down and returned home, Hillary realizes that she has a bad attitude and voluntarily admits her mistake. Pello, who had been enlightened, was sweet enough to forgive him. The two make up again. But is this the legendary bedlam? After this argument, Pello is finally able to make peace with Hillary and go to Max's stage show. As soon as the stage show opens, Max asks for a moment of silence for his best friend Hillary. Hillary was apprehensive as she watched everyone rise in unison for a moment of silence. Max then flew a paper airplane into the crowd. Coincidentally, the paper airplane landed in Pello's hands again. Just as Pello and Hillary are getting nervous, the show officially begins. The story takes place in college, where Max, an acting student, picks up Hillary's paper airplane from the art school. They bonded over their shared love of origami. The familiar scene reminds Hillary of old times, and it turns out that the two were once very close. Hillary often became sleepless because of the costume design. Max saw it and took care of Hillary in every possible way, and stayed up with him all night. On this day, Max asks Hillary to design costumes for a stage play he has choreographed. After Max's pouting, Hillary finally agrees. Watching as Hillary looked down and straightened his costume, Max fell inexorably into Hillary's earnest eyes. Max says he's a little nervous about acting and wants Hillary to be there for him in the scene. The two fell in love. In the end, Max managed to get a loving kiss and a sizzling embrace from Hillary. Oh my god, the plot, the persona. Is Pello a stand-in for Max? Pello, who is watching from offstage, is furious and turns to question Hillary, only to find Hillary staring at the two protagonists embracing each other on stage. The similarities bring back memories for Hillary. Back then, Hillary did fall in love with Max, but it was pointed out by a friend that Max was scheming when he approached Hillary in the first place.
พี่คิดว่าเรื่องบังเอิญแบบนั้นน่ะมันจะมีจริงๆหรอ
What Hillary thought was a chance encounter, and then falling in love was nothing more than Max's customized script for Hillary. Everything about Max is fake, and even Hillary isn't the first victim. After Max was exposed, he first defended himself, and when he saw that Hillary was still determined to break up, he immediately showed weakness and played pitiful, saying that he made up so many lies out of his love for Hillary. He hopes that Hillary will notice him and promise that he will correct it. What a natural actor. I pity him a little when I see him. Hillary is very sober out of the heat of the moment. He is acutely aware of Max's nature and is not in the least bit impressed and simply chooses to leave. Back in time, a reminisced Hillary wants to confront Max, and Pello has no choice but to follow. To find Max in the parking lot, and Pello tells Max about, among other things, seeing Hillary's ghost. However, Max doesn't believe that ghosts can survive at all, so he angrily kicks Pello out. For the sake of his beloved, Pello couldn't pass up this opportunity. He finds Max again and perseveres in stating the truth. Max doesn't believe it at all, stating that unless Pello can't get Hillary to show up right away, leave him alone. In order to prove that what he says is true, Pello takes Max back to his house, and at the same time seeks out Melis to perform an invocation. But this time, Hillary couldn't move the nib of the pen even with all her might, and no psychic phenomenon was revealed. When confronted by Max, Melis had to say that not everyone has a psychic constitution. Just then, the landlady suddenly opened the door. That's a lot weirder than a psychic, and even weirder, Max actually knows the landlady. That said, is it true that no one got suspicious when an outsider suddenly showed up at Pello's house? Finally, the landlady mysteriously lights a candle and states that she is a diva and can't help Max with another seance. After the landlady's operation is over, Max can't see Hillary. In the end, the lovers meet again and are separated. Both sides had a lot to say, and Pello, feeling a little redundant, sulked alone outside the room. However, the atmosphere in the room was not as ambiguous as Pello would have liked. Hillary calmly asks Max what he didn't get done while he was alive. Max also doesn't cling to past feelings and is honest about Hillary's desire to go to an art competition. As a result, he was involved in a car accident. After all this, Hillary has seen a lot more, and he now just wants to find his whole self. In the face of his former lovers, he was also able to openly wish each other happiness, and the two of them got along well. Max is clearly a little put out by the past, and he can't help but ask Hillary if she ever loved herself back then or not. Hillary didn't answer, just smiled at Max. On the other hand, Pello and the others are a bit of a saber-rattling atmosphere. He confronts the landlady about the fact that she is psychic, and why she didn't tell them in the first place that there was a ghost in the house. Instead of answering positively, the older woman said a bunch of incomprehensible philosophies of life, which simply meant that checking out was impossible. Finally, the older woman plucks a piece of Melis' hair, while she's not looking, and prepares to do the deed. Melis was outright scared off by this behavior of the older woman. Melis returns home to find an uninvited Hawk, who is a real ghost. Hawk goes so far as to verbally cite evidence in an attempt to keep Melis away from Pello, trying to draw the paranormal to the aliens. Hawk thinks that by making Melis think that ghosts don't exist, he will get Melis to stop obsessing and stop staying with Pello. But to his surprise, Hawk's comment ignited Melis' anger directly. She retorted in a near breakdown that if there were no ghosts, then what were all the scares and torments she had suffered since she was a child? In the end, the two men are not budging from their differences, and of course, the result is that Melis breaks up with her. On the other hand, Hillary is also suffering from the same emotional crisis. Even when the two of them were lying on the same bed, the atmosphere was as cold as it had ever been. Hillary pallidly explains, but words can't stand up to the truth in the end. The incident hit Pello hard, and the seeds of doubt and unease had been planted in his mind. Pello refuses to communicate and chooses to grieve alone. Hillary didn't know what to do, so she got up and left to calm each other down. Without Hillary's company, Pello was having nightmares again. Seeing this, Hillary had to show up again and gently comfort Pello. Before he leaves, he doesn't forget to confess to Pello again. It was his heartwarming confession that managed to bring the two back together. The next day, Pello takes Hillary to Hillary's dad's house through a message left by Max, but Hillary's dad isn't home at the moment, and with the trail about to be cut short, Hillary doesn't want to give up. He told Pello to wait at the door and broke in as a lone soul. Soon Hillary's attention is drawn to the family portrait on the living room bookshelf. Looking at her mom in the photo, Hillary remembers images of snuggling in her mom's arms as a child. At that moment, the figure of a wild ghost flashes by, and Hillary rushes away so as not to frighten him. Pello allows Hillary to continue to recall memories of her life through the design of her clothing. That's when the image of the family photo flashes through Hillary's mind once again, and he quickly runs out into the yard, only to realize that his mom was with him the whole time. Only she's long since been turned into a lonely ghost. Hillary couldn't help but be surprised for a moment as she looked at her mom, who had become a lonely ghost. On the other hand, due to the recent paranormal events that have been happening to Pello, Pello's mom asks Pello, in a bizarre manner, who the Hillary he often mentions in his dreams really is. Upon hearing this, Pello looked a little embarrassed and had to come forward and tell his mom about his coming out. Relieved to hear that Hillary is her son's boyfriend, Pello's mom says she will support Pello's decision. As a result, in the next breath, Pello states that Hillary is the ghost that lives in the house, and once again, Fear and shock are written all over Pello's mom's face. Back in her room, Hillary doesn't understand why Pello is describing it truthfully to her mother. Pello had to say that the deadline for Hillary to become a lonely ghost was getting closer and closer, and he wanted to open up to everyone about their relationship during Hillary's last hours. Hearing this, Hillary can't help but take Pello into her arms. At the moment, Pello seems to be able to feel Hillary's body as well, and the two of them cling to each other after identifying each other as a couple. At night, the couple, who have just confirmed their relationship, go to Hillary's mom's grave together and run into Hillary's dad, who has come to pay tribute to Hillary. With Hillary's guidance, Pello smoothly tells Hillary's dad that Hillary is searching for living memories. No one in their right mind would believe in ghosts, so he warns Pello in words not to make fun of Hillary again, and then drives away from the cemetery. Hillary and Pello had to return home lost. As a result, the two run into the ghost of Hillary's mom again in front of the house. At the moment, Hillary's mom doesn't remember Hillary at all and chokes Hillary, trying to take him away. In a moment of crisis, the landlord shows up just in time to save Hillary. But instead of thanking the landlord for saving her life, Hillary angrily questions him about why he didn't tell her all the truth. The landlord also seems to have some hard feelings. Just as Hillary is arguing with the landlord, the landlady turns up with some strange words on her lips, trying to comfort Hillary. Seeing that she couldn't get the answer she wanted, Hillary returned to the house in exasperation. After Pello and Hillary leave, the landlady actually addresses the landlord as her father. The scene goes back to an earlier time, when the older woman summoned the ghost of her father through a series of evil rituals. Since her father was also a sorcerer in life, his ghost possesses the power of earth. The purpose of the older woman's summoning of her father turns out to be for him to search for Hillary's ghost and thus find the address of Hillary's father's house through Hillary. On the other hand, Pello's mom is playing the piano at home, but she can't get Hillary out of her mind. Just as she gets up sadly, Hillary kindly helps up the fallen chair. Unexpectedly, this behavior of Hillary's instantly frightened her. She hysterically begs Hillary to spare herself and Pello. Pello heard his mom's cries and rushed over, which eased her mood somewhat. Pello's mother then stated that she was very afraid that Pello would be taken away from Hillary, but when she learns that Hillary will be gone for good after she gets her memories back, she worries that Pello will become heartbroken. Hillary, on the sidelines, was having a hard time watching the mother and son who were clinging to each other. After things have eased with her mother, Pello takes Hillary to Hillary's dad's house again. In an attempt to get Hillary's dad to believe him, Pello comes right out with some information about Hillary's mom's life. But even so, Hillary's dad is still skeptical. So he pulls out the picture book of Hillary's costume from back in the day and says that if Pello can't tell the story behind the picture book, he'll believe that Hillary's ghost really exists. So Hillary looked aside at the familiar draft design, and all the memories came back to him. As it turns out, Hillary's mom was a model in her youth and unfortunately suffered from postpartum depression after giving birth to Hillary. Hillary dreams of becoming a fashion designer and designing clothes for her mother herself in order to make her mother happy. For this reason, Hillary has entered art competitions. Unfortunately, the good times didn't last long and Hillary's mom passed away soon after. Therefore, winning art competitions with costume designs became Hillary's only wish. It's at this point that Hillary discovers that her dad is actually having an incestuous relationship with the landlady. The more Hillary thinks about it, the more she despairs that her mother's death was caused by her father. Unable to accept her father's betrayal, Hillary takes to the main road alone and ends her life that way. Going back in time to the present, Hillary, who remembers everything, borrows Pello's body and angrily accuses her dad of the mistakes he has made. Hillary's dad is speechless and has to try to shut Pello up. In order to save Pello, Hillary breaks her family portrait, which distracts Baba, and the two are able to escape from Baba's house. The two had just left the place when the landlady arrived at Hillary's dad's house as well. As soon as she enters, she launches a love attack on Hillary's dad, but Hillary's dad keeps thinking that he is responsible for Hillary's death. In an effort to redeem himself, Hillary's dad has long since let go of his feelings for his landlady. Hillary's dad just won't budge despite the aunt's pleas, and the aunt's plan fails completely. The next day, the desperate landlady decides to release her father's ghost from its bonds, while she herself is learning to let go of the past and face her future life alone. At parting, the father and daughter finally embraced each other. The Landgrave then makes a point of finding Hillary before her departure. He came at this time not only to say goodbye to Hillary, but also to instruct Hillary that her final moments were approaching. After saying goodbye to the land announcement, Hillary turned around and welcomed her dad back. It's just a shame that Hillary's dad can't see Hillary, and he has to entrust Pello to deliver the message. Over the years, Hillary's dad has repented of his transgressions. Once he believes that the wrong souls of Hillary and Hillary's mom are bound in this house, he wishes to confess to Hillary and Hillary's mom in person, so that both souls can be freed soon. Looking at Hillary's dad's sincere plea, Pello had to ask Melis for help again. Coincidentally, Malus meets Hawk, who has come to get back together just before she leaves. With that, Malus brought Hawk to Pello's house to begin a new round of occult rituals. Immediately after, Malus used Hillary's mom's hair practice from her life. With a sudden shower, Hillary's dad is finally able to see the ghost of Hillary and Hillary's mom. Looking at Hillary's mom, Hillary's dad confessed to her from the bottom of his heart and finally got Hillary's mom's forgiveness. As we parted, Hillary's mom hugged Hillary tightly and spoke of her love for her son. She then left this world. It's all over. When everyone leaves, Pello is finally able to feel Hillary's heartbeat. Then, the two begin a scene that was less than a child's play. After a moment of passion, both felt that they had reached the most enjoyable moment of their lives. Immediately afterward, Hillary knew his time was running out, and he immediately took Pello to the rooftop. As the stars watched, he placed a ring on Pello's hand. The two kissed each other again. Before his departure, Hillary asks Malus to take care of Pello for him. He can let go of his feelings for Pello, so if he decides to give up reincarnation and leave alone with Pello's thoughts, that means Hillary will be left alone. The next day, Pello wakes up and the only thing waiting for him is Malus. Hillary's figure is never seen again. Malus is here this time to relay a message to Hillary. Pello can't believe that Hillary just left without saying goodbye and gave up her reincarnation for him. On the other side of the screen, Hillary is alone on the street, bright red with countless lone ghosts coming at him. His pure soul began to darken and his consciousness faded. Pello finds Hillary the moment he's about to become a lonely ghost, but it's all just Pello's dream after all, and Hillary has really left him. Pello's mom saw how upset Pello was and held him tightly in her arms. Today, the only shoulder left for Pello to lean on is his mom's. Pello then fantasizes about Hillary still being around and keeping him company, and it tells Hillary how much he doesn't want to let him go. Pello knows that people will eventually face life and death. Therefore, he intends to hide all the memories of Hillary in his heart, pick himself up and face life bravely. In the end, Pello once again fantasizes about Hillary kissing herself. However, fantasies are fantasies after all, and Hillary really does leave, leaving Pello alone and sad in bed. Years later, terminally ill Pello returns to the house. At this point in his life, his days were numbered. Nothing seems to have changed here, and Pello was once again lying in a familiar bed, clinging to the same pillow that belonged to Hillary. And with that, Pello passed away, and it is Hillary, whom he loves dearly, who greets him at his doorstep. Years later, the two were reunited in such a way that they lived a sweet life together hand in hand in another world. The whole story of the show is all but finished here as well. The plot of this drama can help but remind me of, again, Kyoshi He's Coming to Me, where a human and a ghost fall in love, only he's coming to me ended with a ghost coming back to life, while this show surprisingly continues to fall in love in another world. Again, it's a great ending with two people together. Which one do you prefer? Well, that's it for today's video. If there's anything you want to say, feel free to leave it in the comment section. We'll see you on the next show.